Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome to our first ever official flight with Mac Air, or Millennium Aviation Company. For those of you who are unaware what Mac Air is, it is a virtual airline that was envisioned, created, founded, started by myself, whatever term you want to use, by myself and my good friend Eric Cowl Flaps Grindstaff. It is a virtual airline that encompasses what we feel are the primary three things that the various various flight sim enthusiasts look for out there. One being, well, basically we broke it. Hold on, let me catch my breath here. There we go. Basically, the three things that we feel like most of the flight simulation community looks for in a virtual airline. You're either looking for the opportunity to fly whatever aircraft you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, from wherever you want, or you're looking for something that encompasses more of the old school airliners like the Constellation or the DC-3, or even some of the early jet aircraft like the 707, 727, and so on. Or with a little bit of structure, but not a really strict structure. Or you're looking for something that's really structured, that requires you to step your way through, to start with small aircraft, work your way up, and so on through the ranks, including things such as having to fly check rides and stuff like that. And so in general, now that doesn't encompass everybody, of course, but those are the primary three differences that people tend to look for in virtual airlines. And typically what you have to do is you have to fly with several different virtual airlines to be able to get each of those. So one airline, I fly over here and I get my, fly whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. I go over here and I get the structure and the rank structure, and I have to work my way up, and I go over here to fly the old aircraft because, this virtual airline doesn't actually use those anymore in their fleet, and so on. Well, what we've done is we've put all three of them into a single airline in three different divisions. I love how the sun's coming up and changing the background there. Three different divisions. So you've got the open division, which is just what it sounds like. It's fly any aircraft you want, from wherever you want, whenever you want, and so on. It doesn't matter what your rank is. And then you've got our historic division, which makes perfect sense. It's focused on all the old aircraft, working your way up to the start of the jet age, and a lot of original routes on that too, which is fantastic. And then we've got our professional division, which is an extremely structured and difficult, strict division to work your way through. And you have one profile, and you can fly all three divisions. Now, what we're going to fly today is the open division, because we're going to start one of our tours. And this tour has not been released yet. I'm the CEO of Mac Air, of Millennium Aviation, so I have the wonderful privilege of being able to dive into this, I want to say tutorial. My brain is just all over the place. Of being able to start this tour before it's actually released. And I just want to throw out a special thank you to David. I won't say his last name on here, but David is our tour manager. He has put this together, and it'll be released here pretty soon for everybody else. But he's got to get all his pictures and all of that stuff. But we're going to fly the first flight in this tour today. And I just want to give that special thanks to David for all the hard work that he puts into this. I actually sent him a message yesterday asking him if he was planning on putting together a 787 tour, because we just did the tutorial on this, and I really want to get some flights in on it because this aircraft is a lot of fun to fly. And he came back and he's like, yeah, I actually almost have it done. Got to do pictures and all that. And I talked with Eric, our COO, and he said that he felt it would be all right for me to go ahead and do the first flight in it now, so that I can get a video out there for Mac Air, because that's what I want to do. Now, we are going to have several different series that we're going to do with Mac Air. This series will be our global 787 tour, which focuses both on our open division and the tours that David creates. And then we'll continue our around the world in the Constellation eventually, but those same schedules we were using, we have those in our historic division, so we'll get back to that as well. And then we're going to be doing a very special series that focuses on the Pro division for Mac Air, and that's going to include some special surprises. I'm not going to tell you what that is yet or what that's going to entail, but just know that it's really going to be fantastic when we get to that series as well. So enough about that. Let's go ahead and dive right in here. I want to start out by showing you our ACARS. Now, this is not going to be a tutorial on ACARS, but I'm going to briefly cover it real quick since we've never gone over it before, and I will put together a tutorial on this. But really, to be honest with you, listen to me, people. This is simple. It is as easy as it gets. It is not difficult whatsoever. Okay, we do have a custom ACARS. One feature that I want to highlight right now, right out the gate, is this divert flight feature. Now, I don't know if anybody else uses this. I have never flown with a virtual airline that allows this, but we allow diversions for adverse weather or emergencies. Okay, and this is going to become critical to us eventually because we're going to turn on service-based failures in our 737 and so on. And literally, it's as simple as it looks. If you're going to divert your flight, you select the airports and then click on divert, and you're able to divert your flight, and so you don't lose the flight time that you gained. So for example, if I'm flying, we're in Phoenix today, if I'm flying from Phoenix to say JFK and I have an emergency in flight and I need to land, let's just randomly pick a place. Let's say I'm flying down by Dallas for whatever reason. I wouldn't, but of course the point is let's say I'm near Dallas and I have an emergency in flight. I can select Dallas, KDFW, and I can divert to that airport, and I will get credit for the flight time. I won't lose that flight like you would with any other virtual airline, where you would just, if you land somewhere else, okay, great, you did your emergency, but you're SOL because you know, you didn't land where you were supposed to. Well, you can divert your flights here with Mac Air, and I think that's one of the coolest things we got going. Well, it's definitely up there with one of the coolest things we got going, but the fact that we have 3 different divisions is pretty darn cool too. So anyway, enough about that. Real simple. When you look at this, you know, pause the video for a minute, take a look at what's here, and we'll go over it briefly once I grab the flight here. But a couple things real fast. I can get flight data that's going to grab the next flight in my bid list. Well, I've been flying offline. I've been flying a 737 tour just to get some flights in, an opportunity to fly without recording a video. So the next flight in my list is a 737 flight. So if I click on that, it's going to grab the wrong flight. But if I go over here to this tab, current bids, you can see here's all the flights that I have bid, and this is the one we want to fly today, the 787 from Phoenix to Portland. So I just highlight whichever one I want, and then I can go ahead and I can well, maybe it's going to let me fly bid. I'll bet I have to restart my ACARS. I'm probably going to have to restart my ACARS here because I actually cleared it out. Let's see. I've got it highlighted here. I just want to try. I've never tried this. Get flight data. Schedule found. Yeah, that's not the one I'm looking for. So clear flight data. And let's try current bids. Let's refresh them and see what that does. There we go. We refresh them. So I had to refresh it. Okay, no big deal. So refresh it. Now my fly bid can be highlighted here. So I click on that, it says schedule found, it grabs it, and then I go over here, and now you can see it's got Phoenix to PDX. That's the one we're looking for. Okay, so it's got our flight number in there. Now we've got over 300,000 routes, people. So some of our flight numbers, you're going to look at them, and it's like this weird flight number. That's because all of our flight numbers are Mac flight numbers, Mac Air flight numbers. So some of our flight numbers are really crazy. That's just that was the way it worked out in order for our system to take all of the flights. We've got over 300,000 routes. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? But it is what it is. So coming down over here, that's just your general information connected to the flight sim. Quick note on this, I haven't tried it with X-Plane yet. When I do the tutorial on this, I will. But when this is FSX, obviously, if I fire up P3D and then fire up my ACARS, it connects. I don't have to do anything for it to connect. It does it on its own. So I'm assuming it'll do that with X-Plane as well. I do have X-Plane 11 on here. So I'll try that when I do the tutorial just to make sure that works. You got all your aircraft information here. If you are going to fly a different aircraft than what is listed here, you can go to select aircraft and then load that aircraft. Now keep in mind that aircraft must be in accordance with the aircraft substitution chart, which can be found on our forums. So if you're unsure about that, go into the forums, find the aircraft substitution chart, make sure it's okay to substitute that aircraft. Flight number, flight level, we're actually going to fly at flight level 400 or 40,000. Okay, so put in the actual flight level in there. Don't put 400. It's going to think you're flying at 400 feet. Excuse me. You can change the number of passengers. We're going to crank it all the way up to the max passengers for this aircraft. Current flight time, we're obviously not flying yet. This is our departure time, arrival time, scheduled flight time. We're going to be late because we're always late. Flight phase we're in, what the fuel is at the start, and so on. Now it's not showing any fuel. We're supposed to be at, let me grab it over here. So And I know this is taking just a little bit longer. You guys know how I am. So here's the thing. I used this guy. Let me pull him up here. Whoop. Now, just a quick note, and if I remember, I'll grab a little screenshot of the comment. Somebody put a comment in the tutorial that said that this thing does work and it does load fuel in the aircraft. You have to do it and save the settings before you start the simulator, which I did this time. So when it says set fuel tanks 38,026 pounds of fuel, that is what is in the aircraft right now, because I did all of that before I started the simulator. So you go to save fuel and it does put that in there. So based on this fuel load is based on what I put in for the flight plan. So it's 943 nautical miles. We're flying at 40,000 feet. One more zero in there. And then if I go set tanks to calculated amount, it should be the same thing, 3826. That changed just a little bit, 3864. Not sure why it changed a little bit, but it did. Maybe because this load was a little different. I changed this after the fact, but it's pretty close. Now the thing is I just downloaded a Quality Wing Sim profile for the 787 in PFPX, and it says that our fuel is supposed to be 47,715. Now here's the catch with this. Here's what I think is going on is that flight plan includes reserve fuel, alternate airport, and so on, whereas this does not. This is just straight flight distance. And so I think that's important to note, because 38,064 should be what we need for just our flight distance, but it doesn't account for, you know, alternate or anything like that. So I think we're actually supposed to be at the 47,000. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to pause this video real quick. I'm going to change this, and you can adjust these manually, right? See, I can adjust those manually. It would be nice if I could just put the number in here. I think that would be a lot better, because just putting the number in here would be more accurate. So just something to throw out there if anybody from Quality Wings sees this. Maybe we can change this so that you can actually type in a fuel amount and then have it translate into what's actually in the tanks. Because otherwise, if I'm trying to get 47,715, you know, I'm literally going back and forth trying to balance the fuel here, right? See, these aren't even close to balance now. I can pick this, but that's way too much fuel. That's still too much fuel. It's balanced now, right? But it's not really, that's not what I'm looking for. That's, you know, 10,000, you know, that's 10,000 pounds more than I need there. So not sure I really like that, because it's kind of a pain to balance it. Now there is a way to balance the fuel in the aircraft on the ground. I just don't want to mess with it, to be honest with you. You know, who wants to mess with that, right? So I don't know. You can move these a little at a time, and they seem to go to the same thing there. Yeah, so they're still balanced, but you know, you have to do it like a little at a time, right? 25,955. See, it's still too much. 24,457. That's close. So I'll probably go with that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to close out the sim real quick, save the fuel so that it gives me the proper fuel, and then restart it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got that taken care of, or at least I should have that taken care of as far as the fuel change goes. One last quick note I want to make on the Quality Wing 787 real quick. There was a recent update that was released. What's today's date? Today is the 14th. It's a hot fix. If you don't apply that hot fix by tomorrow, all your gauges are going to stop working. It's something they did in the initial release. They even apologized for it. It wasn't intentional, but you need to put that hot fix in. With that hot fix, it appears that they fixed one other thing as well. Let's hop on the flight deck here. It stays in cold and dark when I start up the aircraft. So the instructions they give you for how to set up cold and dark, removing those two slashes in the config file, now seems to work properly. As you see, we're cold and dark, and I didn't actually do anything to it. I just loaded the aircraft in. So that being said, let's grab ACARS back over here real quick. Just talking with our COO at Mac Air. Not really sure why the fuel's not showing up. It's showing 0 fuel. Not really sure why. We're just going to deal with it for now. It is what it is. So I've already gone ahead and I've grabbed the flight. Make sure we put 40,000 in there. This is the aircraft that we're flying, so we don't need to change aircraft or anything like that. I can put the route in there if I want. I'll just copy it straight off of my route string over here. It'll come out looking a little funky in here because it's coming off a text file. Not really worried about it. It's fine. You don't have to put the route in there. It's not a requirement. But other than that, I think we're good to go. So what I can do at this point, now again, this is not a tutorial for Mac Air's ACARS, so I'm not going to go in depth on it, but I will do a tutorial on this soon, I promise. But at this point, what we do is we can just hit start flight. Now I've already got the parking brake on, and you can see it gives us a bunch of information. Now every once in a while, for some reason, this thing freezes up. Remember, this is a custom-made ACARS for Mac Air. Oh, it did show the fuel now. As soon as I hit start flight, it showed the fuel, 48,908, which is probably pretty close to what we have, right? We had 47. Yeah, that should be pretty close. Let me see what I got on my quality wings. Yeah, 48,914 is what I have on here. So it's showing 48,908 as the fuel start, so that's good. So it is showing the fuel now. And I'm going to actually let our COO know that here in just a second. So I'll do another pause here shortly after I go over what we got on ACARS here, and then we'll kick it off, because we're already like 15 minutes in, and even though I talk a lot, that's a long time. So all this information stays the same as it was, and then we've got our information here. It's showing Mac cars. We're using FSX, what FSUIPC version, the flight number that we're on, the aircraft that we're using, and all of that stuff. So for example, if the aircraft that you're using, we're using a 787-800, if this was not an appropriate aircraft for the flight, in other words, it's not on the aircraft substitution chart, you're going to end up with a warning, and ultimately this PIREP is going to be rejected if I fly it. Okay, so it's telling us where we're at. A little information. You guys know I have crash detection turned off. I could probably turn it back on because I have AI traffic turned off, but I'm not going to change it right now because we already got things going. And then it gives us just a little information about the aircraft itself. It's a 2-engine jet aircraft, and so on and so forth. Navigation mode is in nav, and so on. So we're ready to go. Okay. Now it doesn't actually have any flight time ticking yet, and it hasn't given us a departure time because the parking brake is on. As soon as I release the parking brake to push back, it's going to start ticking down on the flight time. So just keep that in mind. Once we've started the flight, at this point we don't have to do anything else with ACARS until we're done with the flight, and we'll go over that when we get to that point. So I'm actually going to take ACARS and shrink it down. Let me move it out of the way and then shrink it down. Let me shrink that down, get it out of the way, shrink that down, get it out of the way, get all that stuff out of the way. I'm going to pause the video for just a minute. We are going to kick it off after this. I just want to make sure that I message our COO and let him know that the fuel did show up once I press start flight. That way he knows, because he's working on all that stuff in the background all the time, and I don't want to delay on that. So be right back just a second. Alright, we're ready to rock and roll at this point. Just another final note, actually. So that update obviously fixed the issue with my flap lever as well. You may recall that I had to use a button before when I did the tutorial, but now when I use my lever, actually, you know what? It's not quite working. So I can either do full flaps or I can do no flaps with the lever. So I'll still have to use the button to get my incremental flaps. I'm not sure why that is. I'll have to take a look. That might be a setting in my FSUIPC, but you know, the lever's at least working now, so that's something, right? Okay, so we're going to jump right in at this point. We're going to jump up to the overhead here. So this flight deck safety inspection is supposed to be done with just the battery on. Okay, and the reason for that is, and I'll try to remember to take a screenshot and pop the comment up here, but somebody put in the comments that that's to make sure like the wipers and stuff like that are as they're supposed to be, so that they're in the off position properly or something to that effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go down this list before I turn the battery on, because things take takes a little while I talk through it, right? So the battery switch will go on, and then we check the hydraulic panel. C1 and C2 pump switches, that's these two here, will need to be in the off position, and the demand pump selectors, that's these two down here, will also need to be in the off position. And so we should, I believe, get fault lights. Wiper selectors should both be off. This is the left and this is the right. Those will both be off. Nav light switch needs to be in the on position. We'll turn those on right now, so they should come on automatically. And then logo light switch at night. It's still early in the morning, so we'll turn those on as well. Landing gear lever should be down, which we might be able to see from here. No, of course not. There's the landing gear lever in the down position there. Alternate flap arm switch is off. That one's down here as well. If you recall, that's back here. Okay, alternate arm switch off, and then the flap selector off as well. That's this one. Those are both off. And then the parking brake set, which we've already done. So that's everything we're supposed to do when we turn the battery on. And so we just want to make sure all those things are as they should be once that battery comes on. And then as soon as that's done, we'll go ahead and we'll add external power to the aircraft. So let's turn the battery on real quick. Okay, there it is, battery on, and all of those are as they should be. So wipers shouldn't be moving, nothing like that. Everything is really as it should be. So without further ado, remember there's two different places to grab that Quality Wings control panel. We'll just grab it right there. We'll hit external power right here, click it back off, and then when we jump up top, you can see the external power is now available left and right. So we'll just click one and it puts it on both of them. Now we have external power on the aircraft. Pretty straightforward, very simple, and we can dive right into let's see, next would be establishing APU, electrical power, but we're not actually going to turn the APU on yet. No reason to burn the fuel because it's going to take us a few minutes to get through everything. So we'll take it to our initial pre-flight procedure, which, as you can see from all of these checklists popping up one after another, and there's several of them, there's a lot to go through, and you may remember if you've seen the tutorial that there's a lot to go through as well. We're not going to highlight all the buttons and stuff this time. We're going to go through it quite a bit quicker because this is about flying the aircraft. This is not actually strictly a tutorial. So let's dive right in. The IRS selectors need to be off for 30 seconds and then on. Well, they've already been off, so we just turn them to the on position, right click them each once, and verify that the on battery light is extinguished. Well, I don't see any light on there, so we're good on that. And then we can go down for our CDU and do our initial data. So if we hop down here, CDU, and we can go to the ident page, and you can see now that we actually have the correct AIRAC cycle. So along with that update, so there was two things. It was planned already for AIRAC 1711 to be the one that updated with Quality Wings 787, and if you go into your Navigraph Manager now, it'll actually show the Quality Wings 787 as a separate aircraft rather than Quality Wings all aircraft like it was previously. So we can clear our messages off. We're on the correct AIRAC cycle. Model is correct, although the engine is not the one that I was expecting. So the profile that I used with PFPX was actually incorrect. It was for the 1000. So that may throw our fuel off a little bit, but this thing's going to tell us if we don't have enough fuel. So navigation database is current CDU position, initialization page comes next. And remember, we don't actually have to do anything here. Now we're going to put in our reference airport, KPHX, type it in over here, highlight it, click, there we go. But we don't have to put a position in here. Okay, now we are at gate 8, but I don't know if this thing, if the aircraft recognizes it as gate 8. I only know that our A cars did, so I'm not going to put a gate in there. Remember, dashed lines, it's not required. Only if there's boxes are you required. Let's see, what's next? Status display. We want to verify hydraulic quantities do not display RF or OF. Okay, so status display. Actually, we can do this right on here. If you go to systems, I believe, yep. If we click on systems, click on status here, all right, and we're verifying that our hydraulics quantities do not display RF or OF. They do not. We want to verify that our liquid cooling quantities do not display RF or OF. That's down here, and they do not. Oxygen pressure is sufficient for flight. It's 1950. I don't know what sufficient is. I'm sure it's in the manual. I did not read that, so there you go. We want to verify circuit breaker status. So we click on circuit breakers over here, and then you're going to click on open or trip circuit breakers if it's not already highlighted. Okay, and it should tell us if there's any open or tripped circuit breakers on here, which there are none, so we should be good on that. So let's put this back to the CDU, and then let's hop up here because we want to go to the engine display. So it's this display here that we're actually looking at right now, and it's this button right here. So if I click it, you see that goes away, turn it back on, and it comes back. And what we're actually going to look for is the oil quantity, and you probably can't see it, so I'll pop it up. The oil quantity is 21. We want to verify that it's at least 18. Well, we've got 21, so we're good, right? So let's close that back down for now and move on to the next page. We want to check that the ICAS display indications are normal. I should just pop this back up because we need it for a minute. That's these guys right here. So hydraulic pressure systems, engine shutdown, packs left and right, all of these are normal indicators here. Okay, let me move this over here. And if I hit cancel, and then fuel pumps those are all off, so those are normal indicators. But I'm not seeing anything on there. If you hit it again, they go away, and then hit it again, they'll come back, right? So what you're looking for is things that are abnormal, like a half discharge engine or brake temperature message or something like that. We're not seeing anything there, so we're good on those. And that means we're going to be able to hop back up to the overhead panel and get going on all our work up here. So Starting up top left here, flight control surfaces panel needs to be set. The tail switch and the wing switch both need to be normal. These two, you can't do anything with them, so we're not going to mess with them. I mean, you can't. You literally can't. You can't click on those. Heading reference switch needs to be normal. It is. That's what that light is there. That's normal. Primary flight computer's disconnect switch needs to have the guard closed and verify that the disconnect light is extinguished. This is the guard here. If you right click, it opens. Right click to close, and obviously we're going to leave it on auto, and the light is not illuminated. So it is extinguished. Moving down to the electrical panel, which is next. Battery switch obviously is on already. Verify the off light is extinguished, which that makes sense, because if it was off, we'd have an off light there. IFE passenger seats power switch needs to be on and verify that the off light is extinguished. Same thing with the cabin utility. Those are both good to go. APU generator switches both need to be on and verify that the lights are extinguished. These two here. Generator control switches need to be on and verify the off lights are illuminated. That's these guys down here. These are generator control switch. They're all on, but the off lights are supposed to be illuminated because they're not doing anything yet. And then verify that the drive lights, these 4 lights below them, are all illuminated as well. APU selector as required and verify the fault light is extinguished. The APU is in the off position right now because we're not running on the APU. Left wiper selector needs to be off, which it is. Towing panel power lights need to be towing power panel lights need to be off. This is the towing power switch here. There's no lights up here, so we're good. You can test that. The lights come on. There we go. What is that? That's the battery power test switch. Okay. Flight deck door power switch needs to be on. It's not. We'll click that one on right there. Off light goes away. CCR reset switches need to have the guard closed. That's these two right here. Right click, it opens the guard. Right click, it closes the guard. Emergency light switch needs to have the guard closed. This one here, guard closed again. Right click to open and close the guard. Service interphone switch needs to be in the off position, which is up. If you left click, it's on. Right and then left click again to turn it off. And then next is the passenger oxygen switch, and there's a note in here that you may recall. Do not actually click on the button because it releases the passenger oxygen mask, so we don't want to do that. So we're going to leave that as is. And then the check is that the guard is closed, and it is. Window heat panel, it needs to be set, so the backups are both on. We need to turn on all 4 of the primaries and make sure that the in-op lights go off. And then the ram air turbine coming down here, same thing. You don't want to click on the switch because it deploys the ram air turbine, which we don't want to do. So you just want to make sure that the guard is closed. Again, you right click to open and close the guard. Moving down right below it to the hydraulic panel, we want to verify, let's see, left and right engine primary pump switches are on and verify the fault lights are illuminated. So primary left and right are both on and fault lights are both illuminated. Next is the center 1 and center 2 electric pump selectors need to be off and the fault lights illuminated. That's these 2 selectors here. They're both off. Fault lights are illuminated. And then obviously next, actually it doesn't say anything about the, yeah it does, right there. Left and right electric demand pump selectors. These are demand, right, left and right. They need to be in the off position and fault lights illuminated, which they are. Seatbelt sign selector needs to be set. We'll put it to auto. Chime the cabin real quick. And then on the lighting panel, overhead panel light control needs to be in the mid position. That's this one here. It's all or nothing. We're going to turn it on because it's still very early morning. Master brightness switch needs to be on, which is this one here. And you click in the middle to turn it on. And then we'll put it in the center position there. Glare shield panel light control needs to be in the mid position. That one kind of, yeah, that goes in mid position, so we'll leave that one there. Landing light switches all need to be off. Up is off in this case, and they are. Ground test selector needs to be normal. That's all the way back up top. I love the flow on this. Back up top, this is our ground test selector. It is normal. APU fire panel, we want to verify that the APU bottle discharge light is extinguished and the APU fire switch is in. Well, there's no lights on here and it's in, but if we test it, actually it's this test here, you can see the light does come on and then goes off when we let go of the test switch, so that should be good. Cargo fire pane needs to be set and cargo fire arm switches need to be off. Well, I don't know what we do to set it, but they're off, and so we're going to leave those alone, obviously. What's next? Engine panel needs to be set, so EEC mode switches that's down here both need to be in the normal position, which they are, and start selectors also need to be normal, which they are. You can see we go through this a lot quicker when it's not strictly a tutorial. Moving on, fuel jettison panel, We're setting that next. The fuel jettison nozzle switches both need to be off. That's these two. They are off. Fuel to remain selector needs to be in. Alright, so you pull it to turn it to be out or on, which would be right click. And I can't even tell. You can barely see it moving, just so you know. But if you right click, it pops out a little bit, and left click, it pops back in. So it needs to be in. Alright, fuel jettison arm switch needs to be off and verify that the fault light is extinguished. It's off and the fault light is extinguished. Crossfeed switch needs to be off on the fuel panel, which it is. Verify the valve light is extinguished. Obviously there's no light on there, so it must be extinguished. Fuel pump switches all need to be off unless, well, they all need to be off, but if we have the APU on, then the left aft should, the pressure light should be extinguished. And then verify the other left and right pressure lights are illuminated. Okay, we don't have APU on, so the light's not extinguished. And then we want the pressure lights on all those, so they're good as they are. Fuel balance switch needs to be off. And it does tell you how to balance fuel on here. I did not want to mess with balancing fuel, and that's why I wanted to make sure when we loaded the fuel that it was loaded evenly. So the fuel balance switch is off, and that's good. That's how we want it. Anti-ice is as desired. Everything on auto. I don't know why you would put it on anything but auto unless you had no option. Moving on down to the lighting panel, beacon light switch needs to be off. It is. Navigation light switch, it says as needed. That's going to stay on all the time. Logo light switch is going to be, it says as needed. We're going to leave it on for now. Wing light switch as needed. We can go ahead and flip that one on just so we don't forget later. Indicator lights we want to test. Okay, so left click it, move it away. All these indicator lights come on. Do they come on down here as well? It looks like they do. Yeah, all your indicator lights are coming on all over the place. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then when you left click it again, remember, left click and hold, move the mouse away while you're holding it, then let go of the mouse button and they'll stay on. If you left click and then move away, it's just going to go on and off, right? Because it's a hold switch. Runway turn off light switches need to be off. That's these two. They are off. Taxi light switch and strobe light switch both off, and that's these two here. Moving back up top, ELT switch needs to be on. That's this one. I'm sorry, not on. Guard closed, which it is. Again, right click to open and close the guard. The humidification switch needs to be on. It was not, so we left click that to turn it on. Moving down to cargo temperature, let's see, for forward bulk cargo temperature switches, it says as needed and verify the off light is extinguished. This one's on auto. I'm going to leave the rest as they are because I'm going to assume they are as needed. Moving to the air conditioning panel right below that, equipment cooling switches need to be on auto and verify the, I think OVRD stands for override lights are extinguished. Well, they're on auto, so I guess OVRD would be the light below it. That's obviously extinguished. Recirculation fans need to be on. That's these two here. They're both in the on position. Flight deck temperature control and cabin temperature control both need to be in the 10 o'clock position. They're always in the 12 o'clock when I come in the aircraft, so let's turn them to 10 o'clock. Pack switches need to be auto and verify the off lights are extinguished. They're both off right now. Left click them each once and the off lights extinguished. Trim air switch is on. That's the two in the middle. They are on. And then ventilation switch in the normal position, and it is. Oh, and on that one you want to verify the ALTN light is extinguished. I'm assuming that's alternate perhaps, but anyway, the light is extinguished because that says normal. And that's what I think it says normal. Let's whoops, get that out of the way. Let's zoom up there a little bit and see if we can actually read it. Yeah, it says normal. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see that it says normal. So we're good there. And we're going to get a little chop while we're in Phoenix. In case you guys don't remember, the scenery is a little hard on the frame rates, so it is what it is. Okay, where are we at here? Pressurization panel. Outflow valve switches need to be set to auto. That's these two, and they're both set to auto. Verify that the manual lights are extinguished. That would be the light below it, and those are extinguished. Landing altitude selector needs to be in. This one here, again, right click would pull it, left click would push it back in. And then the right wiper selector needs to be off. And that brings us down to the glare shield. So we're moving along pretty quick, but as you can see, there's a lot to do here. So flight director switches both need to be on, 1 and 2. Display select panel needs to be set. So that's this guy here, so I can switch that over to just this display if I want, which I prefer this one. I like the large map on there. So I'm going to switch that over there, and that's my display select panel. IFIS control panel needs to be set. Minimums reference selector, radio or baro. I like it on radio. I believe there's okay, there's radio. I don't remember. I think it's baro if you're doing an ILS and radio if you're not, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's radio if you're doing like a Cat 3 ILS, and Barrow if you're not. I don't recall. Maybe somebody can throw that down in the comments for me. Minimum selector as needed. It's set to 200 right now, so I'm going to leave it there. Flight path vector switch as needed. That's this little guy right here. We don't need it. We're not going to use it. Meter switch again as needed. We're not using meters. We're flying all feet here, so we're good. We don't need to mess with that. Barometric reference selector, inches or hectopascals. That's this one. Right click if you want to use hectopascals. Left click if you want to use inches. It's the back part of this knob. So this is the top part. This is the back part. See how it says IFIS Baro set selector, and then this one says IFIS Baro set standard switch, right? So that's how you change your altimeter setting. If you look down here, I'll pop that up for you. If you look right here, move it over. As I scroll this, if I can get on it, there we go. See, it changes the altimeter setting. But if I go to this one right here, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't do anything, right? I'm scrolling the wheel right now. That would change it to hectopascals if I right-click it, but we're doing inches of mercury. Hope everybody's tracking on what I mean there. Okay. Set local altimeter setting, which is 3001. So the proper way to do that, obviously, is to scroll this to 3001. And there it is. Or you can hit the Bravo key. So let's just say you're in a hurry or whatever. If you hit the Bravo key, it jumps to 3001. Okay. Let's see. Nav display mode selector needs to be on map. It is. We're on map right there. And so it's saying nav display mode select switch push. So I can change between map and plan here, right? So if I scroll this. Okay, maybe. There we go. So there, as you see, it's on menu right now. If I scroll left, it goes to plan. And if I scroll again, then it goes to map. Maybe. It doesn't seem to scroll real well on that one. Anyway, so you could scroll it over to plan and then click on the middle of it here, and it should change it to plan, maybe? Maybe that's something they messed up in the, in the update. Alternatively, I can just click here and go to plan, or you can click here and go to map. And I wonder, they're supposed to be touchscreens in the 787, so that should work in the actual aircraft. Let's see, it says menu select. So this is the menu over here. Let's pop this up so we can see what we're doing. So on this menu, we're going to select whatever map selections that we want. So we can put traffic, airport, waypoints, all of that good stuff can go on here, weather, terrain, all that through the menu option here. We're not going to put anything on there, but that was next. And then there's the caution not to use the airport map. So if I put airport on here, okay, it says not to use the airport map as a means of ground navigation. And if I bring the range down, once we put a flight plan in here, what it should do is it should show us the airport map as well. So keep that in mind when we get to that point. As if it's at 0.5, 1, 2, or 5, it should display the airport map. It's not doing it right now because we don't have a flight plan in there, I think. Alright, display select panel set ICUS transfer switch as needed. That was this one here. We already did that. Nav display weather switch is off. Again, that's through the menu right here. It's being pretty slow right now, but that's the weather switch right there. We're not using that. It's like freezing up on me. Why is it freezing up on me? There we go. Okay. Nav display traffic and terrain switches as needed. We don't need those right now. We're not even moving yet. Flight director switches need to be on. Auto throttle switches need to be armed, 1 and 2. It's being very slow right now. I don't like it. We're going to get a lot of chop when we pull out of here. I dislike that. Autopilot disengage bar needs to be up. Left click is down. Left click it again. That's the up position. Heading track reference switch as needed. We're going to leave it on heading. Bank limit selector, we're going to leave that on auto. That's where it belongs. And then vertical speed or flight path angle as needed. That's this one over here. We're going to stick with vertical speed. And then altitude increment selector as needed. Right click it to put it to the 1,000 over there, so that way when I change altitude it changes 1,000 feet at a time. Otherwise you're changing 100 feet at a time, and it can take a while to scroll it all the way up. Moving over to the sidewalls real quick, and we'll just scroll back over here. We're going to check our oxygen switches are stowed, and then we're going to test them. Just click on it and release. You should get that little cross there, and if you listen closely you should hear a sound. Come on. Sometimes it sticks for some reason. And then forward panel brightness control, right click to on. Where is that one again? Forward panel brightness control. You know what? I never found this one last time. The brightness control. It says right click to on, but I didn't find it. There's the flood. There's contrast. Either way, I don't actually need it, so I'm not worried about it. Forward panels, air data, attitude, source selector is on auto. That's this one up here. It's on auto, so it's good. PFD, MFD selector to normal. That's this one, which it is. Flight instruments need to be checked to verify that the indications are correct, and that only the following two flags are shown: TCAS off and no V speeds. And that's on this guy right here. So obviously we're sitting level, so that is correct. It should show the correct heading, which I don't know what our heading is supposed to actually be right now, but I'm assuming it's correct. No V speeds is on there. And what was the other one? TCAS off. So it's only going to show TCAS off if I turn traffic on, right? So you hit traffic button, it shows TCAS off. If I turn the traffic off, it doesn't care if TCAS is on or off, right? Auto throttle mode is blank. That's this one right here. Roll mode is toga. That's this one. Or HUD is toga. We're not using the HUD yet, but I'll probably use it eventually just to use it. Pitch mode is toga. That's this one here. Those are both toga. And AFDS status is flight director. That's this one in the middle. Obviously it says flight director there, so we're good. Select the map mode. That's obviously we've already selected map mode, so we're good there. Landing gear lever needs to be down. It is. Alternate gear switch guard closed. That's this one again. Right click to open and close it. And auto brake needs to be set to RTO. And it doesn't scroll. The scroll wheel doesn't work on that, so you have to left or right click. Okay, so left click it and it goes to RTO. Integrated standby flight display, that's this guy here. You want to make sure that the approach mode display is blank, so if we hit approach mode, it'll show your ILS bars on there. Verify the flight instrument indications are correct. Again, straight and level flight, and it should show the right altitude, which is around 1100 feet, and it does. You may not be able to see that real well, but I can. And verify no flags or messages are shown. Island control stand, moving down here. Speed brake lever down, which it is. Reverse thrust lever is down. That's these two. Down is the forward position. Up would be back up here. Forward thrust levers, that's your standard thrust. Those are in the closed position or all the way back. Parking brake is set. It is down here. And verify the parking brake set message is shown, and it's supposed to show that on here. We can't see it right now because we got all this stuff on there. If we cancel recall, pop it up, you can see auto brake RTO, parking brake set, and doors are set to auto. I don't know why doors are set to auto, but they are. I don't think any doors are open anyway. Stabilizer cutout switches, guard closed. Those are these two right here. Guards closed. Again, right click will open them. Alright. Next page. Fuel control switches in the cutoff position. That's these two. They're both in the cutoff position. Fuel control switch fire warning lights. Verify extinguished. I think it's these two down here, but these two might be related to the engine fire lights. I don't know because I don't actually have a test switch. Let's just see real quick. If we put this on test, does it show the lights down there? So that shows the engine bottle discharge. So I don't know where the fire warning lights are for these. That's interesting. I should probably know where those are, but I don't. Anyway, let's turn that back off. Let's see. Alternate flaps panel, arm switch is off, and flap selector is normal. We already checked those. That was those two over there. That was part of our initial checks. Captain's audio control panel is needed. We're not going to mess with it. Flap lever needs to be set. So in this case, what it's doing is flaps should be all the way up, and there should be no indication on here. So if I were to move it to flaps 1, see how that changes? The flaps aren't moving, but it shows that the flap lever is set to 1, and so those coincide, and that's what I want. If I put it back in the up position, that'll go away here in just a second. Flight deck door access selector needs to be auto. It's kind of hidden down. I don't know if this armrest moves. It does. Okay, so there's the flight deck door. It needs to be an auto. Find my place here again. Engine fire panel. Verify the engine bottle 1 and bottle 2 discharge lights are extinguished. So we know now, based on our lights test, that that's these two right here, and they are extinguished. Let's see. Engine fire switch is in. That's these two. You would pull them up to be out, which would probably be a right click. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to fire off the fire extinguishers there. Glide slope inhibit switch. Below glide slope, a light is extinguished. That's this one right here, and it is extinguished. Transponder mode selector needs to be on standby. That's this one, and it's all the way over here on standby, so we're good. Aural cancel light needs to be extinguished. That's the one next to it. There's no light on there, so that's extinguished. Floor light switch as needed. That's this one down over here. We're going to just leave it alone. We're not going to mess with it. Evacuation command switch needs the guard closed. That's this one here. Again, right click opens the guard, left and right click again closes it. And then aisle stand panel floodlight control needs to be in the mid position. This one here, and then you from there you would adjust your seat. And we go into CDU EFB pre-flight. Good time. So into the pre-flight we go, and we've already done our initialization. So let's go over here to route, and let's see if it'll do a route request now. It does. So I've got the flight plan stored in there. Now keep in mind my PFPX does not give me a folder directly to the 787. So what I did is I saved the flight plan in the all quality wings aircraft flight plans folder, and then I just went in there and copied it and pasted it into the 787 flight plans folder. So it's this one right here. I want to request that route, and let's see how this works now. Let's just give it a second, see if it does anything. I think it just puts it in there and then you can activate it. Let's put the flight number in. The flight number is 100 on this one. It's actually, you know what? Hold on. Let's see if it'll let me put letters in there. It's actually QWS 100. But you don't put the letters in there, do you? Let's just go with 100. Somebody told me that once. You don't put the letters in there. So we'll just put the number in there, 100. And then let's activate it. Execute that. Now you see, as soon as I did that, you might have seen the change. There's our flight map now, or not our flight map, our ground map for the airport, right? And you can't actually see any taxiways on that map right now. But if I zoom down, I mean you can see them, but you can't see what they are. So if I come up here and I zoom this down just a little bit further, now you can start seeing the letters and stuff in there. It gives you the gate locations and all of that. So that can be helpful for taxi, but it says not to use it as your primary means of taxi. Okay, performance initialization page. It pretty much did most of the calculations for us. It's doing fuel and zero fuel weight based on what's in the aircraft right now. Our cruise altitude is going to be flight level 400. Again, this is still a standard Boeing CDU, FMC/CDU. All right, it's just more digitized, a little bit different look, but overall it's still the same thing. As far as our reserves go, we're going to do 5.0 on those. There's our reserves, and then our cost index. Remember that this is a number between 0 and 2,000. They recommend like 250. We're gonna go. I think we did 500 last time, so let's do 500 this time. There we go, 500. Everything else is already done for us. We can execute that, and then go to our thrust limit page. And one thing is for certain, we're not that heavy. This aircraft has a long range. I forget what the range is on it, but it's very long. We are not that heavy, so we are not going to do a full takeoff this time. We're going to do. I think we're going to use runway 7 left, which is a nice long runway. I'm going to go ahead and do takeoff 1. It's probably still plenty, and then I'm going to do climb 1. All right, so that's what I'm going to use is takeoff 1 and climb 1. And I know there's going to be a chart or something. There's a way to properly check what you need, but I'm quite certain that we can get away with takeoff 1 on this one. Go to our takeoff page. Okay, and you can see it shows flaps 5. We're going to stick with flaps 5. It does have some V speeds in there, but we don't have our departure and arrival put in there yet, and we haven't done our trim yet. So there's a couple things we can do here. We can do our trim here, but I kind of don't want to because we can do our trim over with the EFB, right? So let's do our departure arrival first. And our departure is, let me pop up my flight plan over here. I know sound goes away, it's really obnoxious, but our departure is going to be the Chile 4 departure, which is this guy right here. And we're taking that out to Carlo, so let's see if there's Carlo as a transition. Next page. No, Carlo is not a transition. We are going to use runway 7 left. The wind is 0 at 0 right now, and there's not going to be any other aircraft because, hey, guess what? I turned them off. Actually, incorrect. It shows a step climb on the flight plan, so it's actually Chile 4 to Hobbs or Hobes. So we're going to go with Hobes as our transition, and now we'll execute that. Click on route again. Go back through. Now it says FMC pre-flight complete, right? But if we go to our takeoff page, there's still no trim in there, right? Okay, this is the part where, let me shrink that down because it's really bright and it's annoying me. This is the part where we can go over to our EFB and the two work together. So if I jump over here, I can initialize flight and then don't mess with that anymore and go to performance. Okay, and then when I look in here, you can see that it's got my airport, the runway that I chose, It doesn't have a thrust rating yet. Okay, we're doing 10. Okay, remember it was 10%, right? Flaps are set to 5. That's what we're going to go with. Runway condition is dry because it's Phoenix. It's always dry, right? And then this shows us, okay, so the takeoff weight isn't in here yet, right? Oh, I just had a complete brain fart on this. So we're supposed to link this now, and I'm trying to remember how, because what is it asking me to do here? I'm supposed to calculate it or something. Calculate, but it's not letting me do that. What am I missing? Am I missing information here? Outside air temperature, takeoff weight. Okay, it's at 0 pounds right now. Hide KYBO. I don't even know why that's on there. Okay, completely had a brain fart here because we've got all the information in there now, right? 10, flaps 5, condition is dry. Let's go. Okay. Let me just figure this out for a second. I'm going to pause because I completely spaced on what I'm supposed to do next, which is really kind of obnoxious to me, but it is what it is, right? I mean, this aircraft's new to me, so give me just a second. I'll be right back, and we'll carry on. Okay, so we all know I can be a little slow at times, so I apologize for that. Here's what happened. I messed up. I actually missed a step. So this is hide keyboard. Get rid of that. I'm supposed to copy FMC data. Okay, that puts this in here, and then it's not showing a center of gravity for some reason. I don't know why. But then you put all of this stuff in there. Once that's done, okay, now it shows center of gravity. Then you can click calculate. Okay, so when you first come in here, don't do like I did and just jump in and do stuff up here. Go ahead and copy FMC data, then fill out whatever needs to be filled out, then hit calculate. Now it gives you the information that you want down here, okay, and then we want to send output. There we go, send it to FMC, complete, and now it's over on the FMC. So if we jump over here, you see it's asking us to accept it, and we're going to. So now we accept it. Now interestingly enough, it still didn't put the center of gravity trim in there, which I kind of dislike. So let's click on that. It should be 20. Click on it again, and there it puts it in there, and then it's 20 and 3.5, 20% and 3.5 on the trim. So I was hoping that the EFB, when it transferred over, would transfer the center of gravity, and that's why I didn't do it initially. But it is what it is. So there we are. There's our V speeds and so on. So we're good on that. So let me find the page we're supposed to be on our checklist here, because we're like 30-something minutes into this already, and you know, but there's a lot to do on this airplane. So. Okay, ensure that all the doors are closed by using the Quality Wings control panel. So we can start out. Let's hop up here. Again, a little chop in there, my apologies, but this shows that all the doors are closed right now, which is the way we want it. And then we can also verify that. Let's jump down here. It'd be easier to do down here. Close that out, and then we can come down here and we can go to our systems page on any one of these and go to doors, and then we should see that all the doors are closed there, which is the way we want it to be. Alright, and that's going to say, let's put that back to CDU. This is going to go on our progress page, and that is going to take us to our before push procedure. Fantastic. We're actually moving along now. Seatbelts need to be on. That's already done, and then we put our seatbelts on, and the seatbelt sign should be on. Hydraulic pumps should be on in auto. So we're going to jump up top here. So right demand pump selector should be on, and verify the fault light is extinguished. So there's like a certain order to this. So excuse me, it should be auto and the fault light extinguished. So right click it once, and then the fault light extinguishes. And then the left, same thing, right click it once, fault light is extinguished. And then C1 and C2 electric pumps, same thing, right click each one, fault lights go out. And then fuel, check the fuel on board displayed on the forward ICUS display. This is one we had that I had a little struggle with before. So the fuel on board, it's this one right here, 48.9, which is what it's supposed to be. So that's fantastic. Fuel pumps all need to come on at this point, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's go ahead and let's turn on, even though it's not at this point, let's turn on the APU. So select start on the APU, and then if we hop back down here, we can put any one of these on the systems page. No, yes, and then status. And you can see that the APU is spinning up there now. Okay, so we got the APU spinning up because we're going to need that running here in a minute. Center fuel pump switches on if needed. We don't need those. Stab and rudder trim set. So we don't have hydraulics, so we can't set the stab trim right now, right? So yeah, like, oh well, it will let me set it. So it's supposed to be at 3 point. supposed to be at 3.5, and right now it's at 4.0, but it's not letting me bring it down any further. It'll let me bring it up for some reason, which is interesting. Or it did. Maybe that was just a little error. Nope, there it goes. 4.25. Let's see if it goes up any higher than that. No. Maybe it's just really, really slow. Maybe it's using the electronics to do it, and so it's moving really, really slow right now, because like I'm holding it down and forward, and it doesn't seem to, like you can see it just now went to 4.0 again, and it doesn't seem to be up moving any further. So oh, there's 3.75. So I'm still holding it down. I want to get it to 3.5. It's got to be using electric power to do it instead of hydraulics. So there we go, 3.5. That's where we want to leave it for now. Doors are closed. Beacon light can go on at this point. Beacon light on. We should be on APU power now. So let's go ahead and turn these off. There we go, available, and we didn't lose all our power. Now you could always, of course, I could have checked that by just going back to systems to make sure that it was all the way up at 100%, which obviously it is. So, but now that we're running off the APU, let's pop up our control panel real quick and disconnect the ground power. There we go, just left click it, that disconnects it. Beacon's already on. Transponder can go to transponder now, which is 2 clicks. So 1, 2, there we go, and I just use the mouse wheel to scroll that one. And then we perform our before start checklist. We haven't actually touched our checklist on this yet. Let's go to checklist real quick. There's our pre-flight. We did test the oxygen flight instruments. We checked those, so we're good.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is your captain. We'd like to add our welcome aboard today's flight.
We're just
finishing up our last
Let him finish.
Work, and once we've done that, we'll push back. We're estimating an on-time departure. In the cabin today are some of our finest flight attendants who are there for your comfort, but most of all for your safety, so we ask that you give them undivided attention whenever requested. Once again, thanks for flying with us. Sit back and relax, and I'll update you on our progress once we're aboard.
Okay, so then if I just come down here and click normal, it takes me right to the next checklist, which is the before start checklist that we're supposed to do next, right? Passenger signs are on. MCP.
Seat takeoff. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. Standard reject procedures. Will depart via the SID and climb to initial altitude. In the event of an emergency return, we'll coordinate with ATC. You'll fly the airplane. I'll run the checklist and coordinate with the air traffic control company and the flight attendants. Any questions?
Okay, I guess that was the departure briefing. I went way too far on that. 139, we need to set MCP to V2. Boy, I'm having a hard time getting 139, aren't I? Okay, so that's set. Altitude needs to be set. I have not looked at our departure, so I don't know if there's any altitude restrictions. You know what? I'm going to pop it up over here. I know this will go quiet for a second, but I just want to take a look and make sure I get it right. So looking at our departure procedure here real quick, maybe if I can actually pull it up. My internet's being a little slow today for some reason. So our departure procedure is out to where? Let's see, look at the legs page real quick. We're going Vector, Zephyr, Carlo. I'm trying to find it on our departure procedure. So there's vectors right there. I'm not seeing any altitude restrictions on here. Nothing that says I have to be at or below or at or above anything anyway. There's Carlo right there, no altitude restriction there. Yep, I'm not seeing any altitude. Now again, I'm just glancing at it real quick, so I could be wrong, but I'm not seeing any altitude restrictions. So that being said, let's put this back to our takeoff page. If we go index, this is the quick way to do it, obviously. Go to the takeoff page. That's where I want to be. So I don't see any altitude restrictions. So if we don't have any altitude restrictions, that means I should be able to put my altitude all the way up to our cruise altitude. And that's what I'm going to do for now, because we're not using ATC, obviously. And we said we're flying at flight level 400, so we're good on that. So that takes care of MCP. Takeoff speeds, those are already programmed in. And you can see it doesn't say no V speeds anymore. You can just make out V1 up there. So V speeds are good. CDU pre-flight is complete. Taxi and takeoff briefing, sort of complete. I mean, he did just do a briefing, but we're obviously going to do a taxi and takeoff briefing as we pull out. So there we go. And hit normal again, and that takes us to our before taxi checklist, which is essentially the same as your after start checklist, right? So that means we're ready to actually push back right now. And that's going to take us to our engine start procedure, which is really a very, very simple procedure. Let me get the jetway out of here, because you know I'll forget and then pull back. And you know, or push back. Okay, so now we're ready to push back. Let's go ahead and, you know what, I never looked if there's a pushback procedure on here. Let's go to info. Let's config, jump ahead. We won't be using that. Nope. Okay, well, there's no pushback feature as far as I can tell on here. So go back to our checklist for now. So we're gonna just do my GSX either doesn't work or I uninstalled it. I don't remember which at this point. So we're just gonna do a normal pushback. So let's just release the parking brake. Parking brake's released, and then I'm trying to think here. Which way are we pointed? Let's hop outside the airplane real quick. There's the jetway going back. I'm trying to remember which way we're pointing. Okay, so we need the nose to go to the right. So if I do the pushback and then hit the number 1 key, that should move the tail to the left. So hit the number 1 within a couple of seconds. That should move the tail to the left. I don't remember. But as far as the engine start procedure goes, you're going to go up here and you can start both of the engines at the same time, but you need to wait at least 5 seconds before doing the second one. So we're going to left click start.
Starting engines.
Roger. Clear to start engines.
And we're basically counting to 5, which it's been at least 5 seconds. Then we'll start 2. And then we'll come down here, and then you don't need to wait. Just go ahead and introduce fuel. Wait a few seconds. Introduce fuel, and both engines will start at the same time. You can see by pressing Shift P and then the number 1 key, it turns the tail to the left, which is what I wanted. So we've got both engines starting at the same time, which is actually pretty cool. And we'll let it keep turning here for a little bit. We'll let her push back a little ways. And it tells us auto start on here, and it should tell you when the engine started. So auto start goes away. Auto start goes away. And then you should see something pop up that says that the engine started. Okay, let's go ahead and stop our pushback here. Shift P again. And let's turn the parking brake on. Yeah, I never saw the thing that says engine started. I don't know. I know it's popped up before because I've seen it, and it says in the manual that it'll pop up as well. It says auto start message is replaced with running for 30 seconds. But I never saw that, to be honest with you. It says when it's reached a stable idle. But it's not popping up. It should say running, but that's fine. I'm not worried about it. We know that the engines are running at this point. So let's get rid of that page, get rid of that page. And our before takeoff flow, we can turn the APU off. Okay, and I'm going to do as much of this as I can without reading it. So APU goes off, taxi light can go on, left click that. We need to hit the recall switch down here, cancel recall. TCAS off, that makes sense. We can turn TCAS on right now. I think it's part of the checklist before takeoff, but I'm going to go ahead and just turn it on. And we're not going to have any traffic anyway, so I'm not really worried about it. Radio panel is set. Flight deck door is closed and locked. And that takes us into our before taxi procedure. APU is off. Engine anti-ice is auto as required. We left it. We already hit recall. Auto brake is RTO down here. Flight controls. We do need to do the flight control check. And I'm actually going to switch these over so that you can see it up here. Okay. So let's select systems. And flight controls is this one. There you go. And then we go full left. There we go. Full right. A little bouncy there. Neutral. If I can find my rudder pedals here. All the way up. All the way down. And neutral. And then the rudder full left. And they react a lot faster now. Full right. So that was probably part of that update as well. And then neutral. So we're good on flight controls. We can take this back to the nav display, switch that back over there because that's how we want it to be. And what else? That's the flight controls check. Flaps need to be set. We're doing a flaps 5 takeoff. So that is 2 clicks down. So flaps are set now. See, wow, just like almost choked there. CDU reference page. We need to be on the reference speeds are set, which they are. Takeoff reference page on on the pilot flying's display, and then the active route legs page on this display here, which we'll do that here in a second because we're going to use the checklist there. And then cross-check, verify CDU takeoff reference page, flap setting, thrust selection, runway V-speeds, and all that on the MCP, which we've already done. Stabilator and rudder trimmer set, radio panel is set, flight deck door is closed and locked. And then perform the before taxi checklist. So hop down here. Before taxi checklist, anti-ice is on auto, recall has been checked, auto brakes are set, flight controls have been checked, ground equipment is clear, and the next checklist will be the before takeoff, which is setting the flaps. We've already done that, so then after that will be the after takeoff checklist. Fantastic, we're moving right along here. I've already got track IR turned on. I know I'm really terrible about doing that most of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taxiing out here. Pretty straightforward taxi, but we'll go ahead and we'll brief it, and then we'll brief the departure, and then we'll get this bird in the air. Away we go. Alright, let's take a quick look at our taxi chart here, or do our taxi brief, and then we'll roll into our departure briefing. We're over here at Terminal 2, which is where United Airlines flies out of Phoenix. Now, to be fair, there are no 787s that fly in or out of Phoenix currently. However, testing for the 787 was done in Phoenix and in Yuma, and American Airlines trained their pilots coming in and out of Phoenix in the 787. So we have seen them there, but typically it's not a flight that goes in and out of there. However, at Mac Air, we're capable of creating custom flights as well, and we have obviously created custom flights for this tour. So anyway, we're over here at Terminal 2. We're going to push out here. Coming out right here, we'll scoot over to brain is not working. We'll scoot over here to Delta 6 and then onto the Echo taxiway and all the way down here to Echo 3 to hold short of runway 7 left. Pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Let's take a look at our departure briefing. So it's going to be the Chile 4 departure for us today, and we are going to transition at, had to pop this up over here, we're going to transition at HOBES, H-O-B-E-S, which is right out here. I'd actually kind of forgotten what it was. So anyway, on the departure from runway 7 left, climb out straight until we hit 1,550 feet above sea level. Then we're going to turn left to heading 075. Do that out until we're 4 miles out from Phoenix VOR right here. Turn left to 045 degrees on vectors, and then we're supposed to expect radar vectors to PXR and the 321 degree radial, which is this one here. And then that takes us out to Zephyr, then Carlo, then Chile, which is what the departure is named after, and then Hobes or Hobbs. There are no altitude restrictions that I can see on this one, so we should be good to go on everything. Departure frequency on 119.2, and that's pretty much the sum of it. So here we go. Let's go fly it. Okay, we're holding short of runway 7 left. Now I just want to show you real quick, bring the ACARS over here. You can see that ACARS is running now. It shows our flight time at about 11 minutes. That's from the time we released the parking brakes and pushed back. Shows how much fuel we've used since we started the engines, information on what's on the aircraft, and so on. So real quick here, part of our before takeoff flows, we need to turn the landing lights and runway turnoff lights on. Taxi lights can go off, strobe lights can go on, right? So I turn all those on, and then I bring this back over here, and you can see it's showing all that. Taxi lights off, strobe lights on. It's not showing the landing lights on for some reason, which is interesting. So there may be a little disconnect because this aircraft is new, so we may get a warning saying our landing lights were off below 10,000 feet, but it's not really that big of a deal. That's something that the airline will look into, but it's not something that gets your PIREP rejected anyway, so I'm not worried about that. So let me shrink that back down over here. And so we've got those ready to go, which means we can pull onto the aircraft. Now we are getting a little warning here. It says FMC intercept heading. We can just clear that out for now. I'm not worried about it. If you recall, and we'll switch that back to CDU for now. They want us on the legs page anyway. It's heading 075 after takeoff, and then vectors from there, and then to Zephyr. So I'm going to try, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand fly it at least at 10,000 feet, but instead of doing normally what I do, which is I take Zephyr and then I just put it in place of vectors and see if the LNAV follows, what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to turn on the autopilot from there and see if it turns to Zephyr or not. So I'm just curious to see if that works out or whatever. So enough talky talk. We've got everything ready to go. We've taken care of our before takeoff checklist. Track IR coming on. Little jump here. There we go. I'm sitting up a little higher than normal, aren't I? Okay, brakes off. little power coming in, and this aircraft is so efficient that it starts rolling before I even put power on the aircraft. Now another thing I'm curious about is whether or not the toga mode works, because I've got a button mapped to toga, but every time I've tried to hit it, it doesn't work, which is actually a little frustrating, to be honest with you, because we've got that D-rated takeoff and it's minus 10%, but I don't actually know what minus 10% equals, right? I mean, I probably could figure that out. I'm sure there's a way, but nonetheless, the point is I'm supposed to be able to hit the toga button and let the auto throttles take over. So I'm hoping that the toga button was fixed with that hot fix. Now I don't know, you know, we'll check here real quick. Actually, let's get lined up on the runway. Boy, this thing wants to move, doesn't it? I don't need the sunshade. Get my mouse up and out of the way here. So I have 0 throttle on right now, in case you guys are wondering. There's no throttle on the aircraft right now. It's moving on its own. So we're just going to try and line her up center here.
On runway 07 left.
Come on around. So it's going really slow because again I don't have the throttles on the aircraft right now. But I don't want to suck up too much runway as we come around here either, so I want to get her lined up as quickly as possible. If it's not quite center, I think we'll be alright with it. So that's going to be probably just a little off center, but that's okay. So let's bring her to a nice easy stop here real quick. I'm going to check 2 things. So track IR coming off, little jump. So ugly, I wanted to make sure that I'm recording, which I am. So that's so that I can get the cinematics for you guys. But let's go to FSUI PC real quick, jump in here and go to buttons and switches. And if I click, that's my auto throttle toga button right there. So it is mapped in there, right? So we're good to go on that. So let's see if it works this time. So let's go ahead and bring the throttles up a little bit. And they probably have to be like beyond 50% or something. So I'm going to bring them up high enough. There's 45. Track IR coming on a little jump. There we go. Okay, let's release the brakes here. And so I just hit the toga button there and it didn't do anything. So there's probably a hidden click spot or something for it. I don't know. But obviously toga's still not working as far as my button goes. So let's bring the throttles up. That's not full throttle. I'm just guessing. It says we're supposed to be at 95.4 in the green there.
Check.
So that's pretty close. We're at 92 and change.
B1. Rotate.
Okay, rotate.
B2.
Okay, nice easy rotation there. I just don't want to smack the tail. This thing climbs like crazy. Look at that.
Positive rate.
I mean, it's a climbing machine. Positive rate gear coming up. I mean, this thing will climb. Let's go ahead and zoom that out just a little bit. Right there. Okay. And we're supposed to already go to 075. Ooh, that sucker climbs, doesn't it? Let's bring the trim down just a little bit. There we go. Just lining up our flight director there. Oh, that trim works too, doesn't it? Okay, flaps coming in. Oh, we gotta use the little switch over here. Okay, flaps to 1. Okay, line up that crosshair there as best I can. Got him hand flying it right now. I'm trying to get to 075. That's 77. I don't know why it wants. I guess I just got off track a little to the left, so. There we go. Ooh, she climbs like, I mean, this thing climbs. Now, I don't know how well they did the efficiency, if it's the same in the real aircraft or not, but just trying to get her over to 075 here. And then we'll go to 045 here shortly. Yeah, so we just drifted a little to the left. That's all right. So now it should go to 045 degrees, right? So let's make a left turn here to 045. And then you're supposed to expect those vectors straight to PXR, but what we're going to do is just try and go straight to the next waypoint there. So let's bring her on around. Nice gentle turn there. Whoop. Gotta bring her back. Overshot it. Woo. Passenger's like, what is going on? Alright. Let's go ahead and put the autopilot on at this point. Let's see where it goes. Autopilot disconnect, huh? Autopilot on. I don't know why it did that. That was weird. Okay, so the autopilot's on now. And I think it's just going to fly 045 on the vectors. Yep, that's what it's going to do. So let's get above 10,000. No, we got a little time here. Let me track higher coming off here. A little jump. Bam. Jump down here. And we want to go straight to Zepper. So we're on vectors right now. So just highlight Zepper. Puts it in the scratch pad. Put it where vectors is. Execute that. Jump back up here and you'll see. There you go. Direct to Zepper. She's making the turn. We're almost at 10,000 feet. So landing lights will come off here shortly. Flaps can go all the way up. There's 10,000 feet. Landing lights coming off. Off. Runway turn off lights coming off. Hit the cabin chime. Let them know we're above 10,000 feet. Looking good so far. The chop wasn't too bad. Boy, this thing is one efficient airplane though. It climbs like a maniac, doesn't it? It's pretty crazy how this thing climbs. Alright, we're looking pretty good here. Let's take a look. We've already done all our before takeoff stuff. We're into strobe lights were on. I'm just getting to the right page here. Airspeed call outs after takeoff. Gear is up, flaps are up, engine anti-ice to auto. Then after takeoff checklist comes next. Let's hop down here real quick. Put this guy on checklist. There it is, landing gear up, flaps up, so we're good. Let's move over here where we can see our little button. Click normal, and our next one will be the descent checklist. So put that back on the CDU, hop back up here, and that leaves nothing but, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some of that obligatory elevator music. Alright, taking a look at our arrival briefing here now. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult to see with it turned to the side here, but it was zoomed out so far and I didn't want to try and move it around non-stop, so what I did is I just turned it sideways and zoomed it into where we can actually see everything. So we'll get this figured out as we go. We're going to take the Moxie 6 arrival today. We're going to enter on at LMT VOR, which is the Klamath Falls VOR. And from there we'll head 323 degrees, and it's quite a long haul from there actually. Minimum flight level of 310, 128 nautical miles all the way down here to Moxie. And then we'll turn right to 343 degrees there, down to Portal, and then from Portal down here to Vance. And obviously we are a turbojet, so our max speed is 300 knots, and expect clearance to cross at 12,000 feet. That's why there's a line above and below it. From there, continue on to O City, and then it's vectors from there. And actually, in our text up here, I know it's hard to read sideways, but it says if we're landing east, which we will be, we'll be landing on runway 10 right. Depart O City heading 280 degrees for vectors to final approach course, and we'll talk about that when we actually talk about the approach here in a little bit. So we'll depart O City at 280 degrees on vectors, and then from there, when we take a look at the approach briefing, you'll see what we have going on. Keynotes on here really is just nothing other than the flight level 310 here, 10,000 feet here, 9,000 feet here, 4,100 feet here, and then it doesn't actually give us an altitude here, but the highest or the lowest safe altitude, come on brain function, the lowest safe altitude in this area is 3,500 feet, so we'll probably still be at 4,100 feet when we depart here. And I think that pretty much sums it up. The ATIS is on 128.35, and it says for airport elevation, see graphic, which actually see anything on the graphic here, so I'm not really sure what it's talking about when it says that, but we'll see it on the approach chart anyway, so that's going to sum it up for your arrival briefing. Okay guys, as you can see, we're already on our descent, and the reason for that is for some reason it had us going all the way to the airport and then circling back out here to Moxie and then Portal and then Wance, and I didn't want that obviously. So it's on descent now, but we're way above where we're supposed to be. So I'll work on that here in a couple minutes, but I do still want to take care of our descent procedure because we need to do that. So we need to hit recall, note any changes. There's nothing on there, nothing comes up, so we're good on recall. We need to set the reference speeds. So if we hop down here, go to our initial reference page, and here's your VREF speeds. We're going to do flaps 30, 128 knots. We could land faster than that. I don't know. I like to land with full flaps. Slower makes smoother landing, I guess. So select it, puts it in the scratch pad, then put it in there, and you're good to go. Let's see what comes next. Landing distance and auto brakes. So auto brakes 2 is going to be fine. We've got a very long runway. It's dry conditions. Braking conditions are good. You may remember from the tutorial I broke down why you choose the different auto brake selections. Set radio and barrel minimums. We've already got it set at 200 for the radio, so we're good on that. The approach briefing we're actually going to take care of here in a minute, and then we perform our descent checklist. So if we go on here, descent checklist recall is checked, notes are checked, auto brake is set, landing data reference is good, and then approach briefing we're going to do right now. So that's good, and then next will be obviously the approach briefing. So put that back on the CDU, hop back up here, and I will work on getting this aircraft where it belongs as far as altitude is concerned, while you guys take a look at the come on brain function, at the approach briefing. Yeah, here we go, approach briefing. Alright, taking a look at our approach here, it's going to be the ILS runway 10 right approach. ATIS is on 128.35, Portland approach on 124.35, and the tower for us, runway 10 right, is going to be 123.77, and ground on 121.9. Localizer frequency is 110.50, final approach course at 103 degrees. And glide slope starts out at Powell's at 2,000 feet, MSL, which is 1,976 feet AGL. Decision altitude, MSL is 224 feet or 200 feet radio. Airport elevation at 31 feet, and touchdown zone elevation at 24 feet. A lot of information there. When we come in off of our arrival, instead of just flying vectors, I've created a custom waypoint out here. We'll fly direct to that. Make a right turn around here. I think it's a right turn. I'll have to look at it again. But either way, we'll make our turn to Scapo, and then from Scapo to 103 degrees on course. and work our way down to Heron and then Powell's, which is where we should intercept the glide slope. And looking at our profile view here, you can see Scapa, we need to be at 4,000 feet, 3,100 at Heron, and then 2,000 at Powell's onto the glide slope and in from there, unless of course we need to execute a missed approach, in which case we will climb to 1,100 feet, then a climbing right turn to 5,000 feet outbound on the BTG or Battleground, that's this one, Battleground VOR, the 160 degree radial to Mule's intersection, which is 17.7 miles from BTG, and hold. Continue to climb in the hold until we reach 5,000 feet, or as directed by ATC. Whole lot of information there. Here's the 160 degree radial. Taking a look, you've got that same thing sort of pictured down here. We've got PAPI lights on the right hand side of the runway. Missed approach, climb straight ahead to 1,100 feet, then a right turn, climbing right turn to 5,000 feet. Out to BTG, and then the 160 degree radial from BTG to Mules, holding there. Weather's pretty clear today. I'm not overly concerned about the ILS. I've still, you know, I've never really taken the time to learn a little bit more about the ILS, but we're going to get there, I promise you that, because I know there's a difference between Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 3 Bravo, all kinds of stuff. This is for your glide slope. This is if your glide slope is out and you're using the localizer only. You've got a minimum decision altitude of 440 feet MSL if that happens. And then, let's see, runway visual range has to be 2,400 meters or a half mile. I don't know why there's two of these here. ALS out? What is ALS? Somebody put down in the comments what ALS is, or I'll look it up at some point. But if the ALS is out, which is probably alternate, no, I don't know what that is. ALS? Not sure, to be honest with you. Anyway, runway visual range would have to be 5,500 meters or 1 mile. So is it 5,500 feet or 1 mile? Not meters, 5,500 feet or 1 mile. And then I don't know what the lower one is for here, so this confuses me a little bit. I still need to learn a little bit more about this. I do apologize, because I know some of you are probably like, well, that's just ridiculous. Well, you know, I don't fly commercial aircraft in the real world, so but you know, when I get a chance, I'll try and take a look at this and learn a little bit more about it so that I can explain this better. But I'm sure there are plenty of you that know about it, so you know, please feel free to put something down in the comments, educate us all, and I will try to not only make note of that comment, but remember that it's there and remember the information, because I know I'm terrible about that sometimes. Anyway, there's your approach briefing. Off we go. Alright guys, as you can see, we're on our downwind leg here, about to make our turn towards final. Taking care of our approach procedure really quick. The initial yeah, you can. There's a lot of different areas that says you can start this. We're starting it here. Altimeters need to be set. They are 3051. Runway turn-off lights, strobe lights, logo lights, all of that stuff needs to be on. We can actually turn the logo lights off. We don't really need those anymore. It's obviously daytime. Landing lights are on. Runway turn-off lights are on. Strobe light is on. And then we need to take care of the approach checklist, which is going to be down here, but I'm just turning my pages real quick. Okay, down here, approach checklist, altimeters need to be set, which they are, so we're good. And then that takes us to the landing checklist, which we'll be getting to here shortly. You can see we've already slowed our speed. I'm going to bring it down a little bit more, bring it down to 180 knots. Not 170, 180. We've already set our V speeds down here. You guys saw me do that earlier. It's going to be flaps 30, 128 knots landing speed, which is nice and slow. We've got plenty of time to get to that, so we're not in a big hurry here. And I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything else, which doesn't look like we did. We can arm the speed brake now. I don't think we're going to need it to slow down anymore. This is an extremely efficient aircraft, however. I mean, it is really efficient. It handles all of the systems really well. It handles the vertical speed management really well. I mean, it's just really efficient. And it's really, I mean, it moves. This aircraft moves quite well. In fact, I think the fuel was way off, because right now we're showing that we've used 25,658 pounds of fuel out of the 48,000 that we originally loaded on the aircraft. I don't think we needed anywhere near that much fuel, to be honest with you. So maybe we need to just go with the fuel. Maybe the fuel manager, or the, what is that thing called? The aircraft manager from Quality Wings. Maybe it already accounts for. Now my brain doesn't want to work again. Maybe it already accounts for reserve fuel and what else? Alternate airport and all that. I sound like an idiot. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't really know, but we've literally used half our fuel. I don't think we need double the amount of fuel. This is an extremely efficient aircraft. So it is what it is. We'll go ahead and bring in the next setting of flaps here. Here we go. And I don't know, there's really nothing else to do except wait for it to make the turn and then start slowing it down and get on the glide slope, right? So that's what we're going to do. There's the announcements in the back. Give them the chime. I think they just did that automatically once we hit flaps 5. Obviously the landing gear's not down, the flaps aren't set, the auto brake is armed, or the speed brake is armed, and that's why we have that item checked off already. So you don't even really need to do this checklist. Once you have everything set where it's supposed to be, it'll check them off automatically, which is just one more really cool thing about the aircraft. Loving the terrain here. I love these approaches. I've been flying the USA tour in the 737 offline. I think I mentioned that already. And David really came up with some great locations for that. Really some interesting approaches. And this is another example of that. I mean, if you look here, we'll throw the terrain on just to highlight it a little more. But I mean, we're right on top of this terrain here. They're coming down over these hills. I mean, this airport's not very high, but the mountains and stuff that surround it are pretty high, and we're really getting a good taste of those. I just think that's pretty awesome. So just another shout out to David. Great job on these tours. I think it's fantastic. Now as we're making this turn here, I'm going to go ahead and arm the localizer, and I'll pop this up for you so you can see the localizer is armed. It's in white. We're still on LNAV mode there. As soon as it locks onto that localizer, and I'll leave that up for now because we got a little time to work with. I'm going to bring the speed down a little more, but just watch this right here and watch for that localizer where it says LOC to turn green. When that turns green, that means it's locked onto the localizer, and then we can hit that approach switch. So we're looking really good right now. This is the indicator for the glide slope over here. This is actually our VNAV indicator here. So that's why we're below glide slope right now, which makes sense. Again, we're right over the top of this terrain. I think it's fantastic. It should make for a really cool cinematic here when I get a chance to put that together. So let's go ahead and put the next flap setting in there. Puts us at flaps 15, so we're good there. And we'll hold 160 as we go through this turn. Remember, it's 128 is our landing speed. So is that what it was? 128? Still waiting for that to lock onto the localizer before I jump down there and show that. Look at that, just right on top of the terrain. Really cool approach. My hat's off to David for coming up with these airports. This is awesome. 25. This is fantastic. Like, we're 2,500 feet above those mountains right now. That's really cool. There it is, locked onto the localizer. That's what I was waiting on there. Let's jump down here and just double check. Yeah, 128 is our landing speed. So we're looking for 133 as our setting on here. So now that the localizer is locked on, we can hit the approach switch. Maybe. There we go. And now same thing. You see glide slope is in white, GS in white, and then when it locks onto the glide slope, that'll turn green. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring the speed down just a little bit more here. Not quite that much. Bring it down just above the maneuvering speed. Look at this, coming right over the mountains. Really cool approach. I'm really liking this. So 146, that puts us just above the minimum maneuvering speed for flaps 15. We'll bring it up. We'll bring it up to 150, just to keep it above that minimum maneuvering speed. Playing it safe, waiting for that glide slope to lock in. As soon as the glide slope locks in, we'll drop the landing gear. We'll set our approach speed, which again is going to be 133, and get onto that glide slope, and we'll go in from there. We'll turn the track IR on and all that good stuff. So really cool approach. I'm really liking this. I get a kick out of this. Coming in over the mountains, I love approaches like this where you have to get really close to the terrain. Some of you have probably seen my Unusual, Difficult, and Dangerous Approaches series, which is a really neat series. I really enjoy it. Like this wouldn't probably qualify for that, but it's still a really cool approach as you turn in over the mountains here, and then the mountains just drop away as you get onto short final. I really enjoy stuff like that. That's just one of the things that makes the flying so much fun, and that's why we put so much time and effort into our scenery and our terrain, because I mean, this looks pretty darn good, and our frame rates are really good right now too. Actually, we're looking at 20 frames a second, so not too shabby. This aircraft is not hard on the frame rates at all, but Quality Wings did an excellent job on this airplane. Now I don't know what the real world specs are on it, and most of us won't, because you know Boeing keeps that stuff pretty tight secret, but they do tend to share some of that stuff with these aircraft developers, and I would guess that they have done that with Quality Wings. They did an amazing job on this airplane, so really stoked about it. So we're looking good here. We're just about down to our intercept altitude. Remember, it's 2,000 feet at Powell's, and we're almost to Hearn right now, and at Hearn we want to be at 3,100 feet. We're actually a little bit below that, so I don't know if that's, you know, an issue where the aircraft's not managing it properly. It's probably not put into the FMC properly, to be honest with you, because this thing really manages everything quite well. I'm very impressed with it. So just waiting for the glide slope to lock on at this point. Really looking for this diamond to start moving down there. It's not moving yet, which is a little surprising. We are still locked onto the localizer, so I don't know. I would think, because this is our runway right here, so I would think we would already be locked onto it, but I don't know, maybe not. Still waiting to lock onto that glide slope. I would think we would need to be going a good bit lower at this point. Somebody tell me. I'm actually getting a little nervous that that glide slope's not moving. It's not moving at all. Yeah, it's still not moving. And I think I've reached the point where, well, we're almost to Powell's, and Powell's is where it's supposed to lock on at, right? So we're not at Powell's yet. We're still a couple miles out from that. So we should see it start moving here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and drop the landing gear at this point, bring the speed down, because if I have to take manual control, I don't want to have to mess with it after I turn the autopilot off, right? So I'm watching for Powell's, and if we don't hit it by the time we get to Powell's, let's get those flaps coming all the way in. Then I'm going to turn the autopilot off. So track IR coming on, little jump here. There we go. Alright, so we're looking for glide slope to intercept at Powell's. So we should see that diamond moving here shortly. I mean, we're still below glide slope. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't, but I can see the PAPI lights. There it's starting to move now, just a little bit. So this is starting to make me a little nervous. I really felt like we were too high there. But it's starting to move now, so it should lock onto the glide slope. And that's what I want it to do. I want it to lock that glide slope on. You don't have to put in the frequency into the nav radio. It does it for you. It did that automatically when I put it into the FMC as our approach. So yeah, coming up on 2,000 feet here, and we're almost on top of Powell's. So we should see that diamond move substantially here any second now. It is starting to move, and as we're leveling off here, let me pop this up for you. As we're leveling off here, now you see it's starting to move quite a bit more. So it just it just looks like we're too high, doesn't it? But apparently we're not. So it might be a steeper approach. You know, I didn't really look. I think it's a 3-degree glide slope, though. Glide slope 3 degrees. Yeah, standard glide slope. There it is, locked on there. It's locked onto the glide slope. It's not descending yet. Well, it started to just a little bit, but because we're not on glide slope. But we're about to come on the glide slope here. Aircraft should start to descend. Just a little crosswind coming off the right, 3 miles an hour, not bad. One thing I dislike is this arrow is a little far to the left. I think this arrow probably should be over here just a little bit, because it's hard to see which way that arrow is actually pointed. But we're going to have a straight crosswind on this thing, aren't we? That's alright, though. Boy, it just looks like a really steep glide slope, doesn't it? Okay, let's go ahead and get the autopilot off here. Really? Really? I got it. Whoa, that's just... Okay, there's the autopilot's off, so we're flying by hand now. 700 foot per minute descent rate. Looking good. I haven't turned the auto throttles off yet. Still got auto throttle is on.
Landing checklist.
Okay, so landing checklist. Let's landing checklist complete. Actually, there it is. Speed brake arm, landing gear down, flaps as required. So we're good to go on that. Looking good. I'm liking it. Let's go ahead and turn these auto throttles off now. And let me try and grab my throttles here. There we go. Obviously we're up, and we have drifted to the right just a little bit. Bring her back over here to the left. See, now we got a tailwind. The wind completely shifted on us. That's alright. It is what it is. We're looking pretty good still. Just get her back on course here. That's my fault, obviously. Still good on glide slope though, just a tiny bit high. There we go.
Approaching 10 right.
She keeps wanting to sort of tilt to the right a little bit there, or tilt to the left actually. I wonder if that's a trim setting or what. Might have been a trim setting because I just hit one click of aileron trim to the right there, and that seemed to just settle her right down. So, all right, let's listen for our call outs here.
500.
Okay, now it wants to go to the right. All right, let's bring her in. Let's get a smooth landing. Try not to float it too far, especially with this tailwind.
Approaching minimums. Minimums. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Oh, too hard. There we go. Oh, that was butter, guys. Pulled a little hard at first. Some reverse thrust in there. Pulled a little too hard at first, but settled her back down. We got a nice landing rate, minus 78. We're not going to make that exit. We'll go ahead and cruise on up to the next one. Let's make sure those auto brakes are off. Yeah, they disarmed automatically when we used the pedal brakes, foot brakes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
toe brakes, whatever term you want to use.
So please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign.
Over down here.
There
we go. Nice and easy.
Pockets and overhead bins for all personal belongings that you brought on board. Please take care when opening the overhead bins, as the contents may have shifted during flight.
Alright, after landing stuff, instead of looking at my list, I'm going to go through, try and do as much as I can by memory here. So flaps need to come up, obviously. Flaps all the way up. We need to make sure that the spoilers are down. Let's turn the APU on. There it is. Let's turn the landing lights off. A little choppy there as I move around now. Taxi light on. Maybe. There we go. Runway turn off lights off. And she's still moving. She's moving slow, but she's moving. Alright. Flight directors can go off. 1 and 2. Yeah, see, this is zero throttle. It's moving. We're just going to pull straight into that first gate right there. Might as well, right? And let's see if we can do an after landing checklist here. Come on. Pop up. Maybe. There we go. Pop up. Landing. Speed brake was... oh, yeah, we're done with that list. So it just goes to the shutdown checklist. So, and of course we can't see anything, and there's no X to close that one out. There we go. Whoa, we're way over here. Get back over there. There we go. Alright, let's roll her in here, and then we'll take care of our shutdown procedures. We'll make sure we didn't miss anything on the landing or after landing. Let's turn taxi light off at this point. Come on. There we go. Ooh, she's moving quick, huh? They're all the way up there. Nice and easy. Come to a stop. We don't want the passengers getting jerked around. Okay, let's get the parking brake on. There we go. Track hour coming off. Little jump. There it is. And as far as our landing procedure, now after landing procedure is what I'm actually looking for here. Let me just find the page real quick. After landing flow, speed brake, we took care of that. Flaps were good. Transponder, we didn't take care of the transponder. That needs to go. It goes to transponder. I'm just going to put it to standby because we're parked anyway. APU, we already started that. Anti-ice as required. Lights off and weather radar off. So we did take care of just about everything except the transponder. So we're good on that. So that's going to take us to the shutdown flow. So let's just make sure that our APU's up and running here. So if we come down here, let's use this one over here and go to systems. No, not systems. Yeah, it should be systems, right? Systems menu. Yeah, there we go. That's where we want to be. So APU is up and running, which means we can shut down the engines now. So let's go ahead and take care of that. 1 and 2. Power transfers over to the APU. Parking brake is already set, but for some reason it doesn't show that on here. It never does. So, but parking brake is set. Fuel cutoff switches are in the off position. Seatbelt sign can come off. Give the cabin chime there. Wing lights can go off, or beacon lights can go off. Let's leave wing and nav lights on. Hydraulic pumps all need to go off. So off, 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 and off. And then those two, I think, remained in the on position before. IRS selectors can go off. Left and right, both off. Flight deck door power can go off. It's this one over here. Fuel pumps all come off. And we should have pressure light on all except the aft fuel pump there. Engine anti-ice is auto. Beacon is off. Flight directors are off. Transponders on standby. And external power is required. So if we hit this guy right here, we can put external power on the aircraft. That makes that available there. Close that back out. Now we can turn the APU off. And that takes us up to our secure procedure. So let's just double check our shutdown checklist. Hydraulic panel is set. Fuel pumps are off. Flaps are up. Parking brake is set. And our secure checklist, IRSs are off. Emergency lights need to go off and packs need to go off. So right click and then right click the little switch to turn those off. And then left and right packs can both go off as well, and you'll see that that takes care of our securing checklist right there. And then we're on external power, and we can leave it on external power. We don't necessarily have to shut the external power down or anything like that. We don't have to bring it to a complete cold and dark state. You know, we could be doing a quick turn, somebody else using the aircraft or whatever. In our case, we're going to take it to a cold and dark state, and in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the external power off and then turn the battery off. That shuts everything down. We can leave external power hooked up. That's fine because we would pick it up from there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, completes our first official Mac Air flight. We flew it in the Quality Wings 787. I really like this airplane. We didn't pull near far enough forward, did we? I really like this airplane. They did an amazing job with this thing. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I freaking love it. So let's take care of our ACARS real quick. Bring it over here. You can see it's recorded all the flight data. It shows that everything's shut down. All we need to do now is click Stop Flight, and it tells us the PIREP is ready. Click OK, and then File PIREP. If this doesn't say good connection, you might have an issue filing that PIREP. We're going to go ahead and file it. Should tell us once it's filed. There we go. PIREP has been filed. Okay, and now we're good to go. We can close this out, and of course, all PIREPs are manually approved with Mac Airs at Mac Air. And some of you guys are probably thinking, "Well, that's just absolutely ridiculous." No, actually, our hub managers do an amazing job of staying on top of them. I've never had a PIREP go more than about 12 hours without being approved, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. They do an amazing job. Mac Air does an amazing job. I'm really grateful for all of our staff. And again, I'm grateful to David for putting together these tours. I think it's fantastic. And it gives us something to do while I try to get a few things squared away for the tutorial series that I'm going to put together for Mac Air, which is going to be really awesome. But that being said, it's going to wrap it up for this flight, folks. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I'm sorry for the long intro in the beginning, but you know, in the future we're going to do all of these flights, so we're going to go around the world in this 787. So in the future those intros will be a little bit shorter. If you haven't already done so, please take the opportunity to smash that subscribe button. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers. It stalled a little bit for a little while there because I wasn't making videos, but obviously I'm making them again. Hit the thumbs up button, give it a like. The more likes it gets, I think the easier it is to find in the search on the YouTube search. And for those of you, whoever it is that goes on there and hits the thumbs down button, I have to laugh because I'm sure it's trolls. But if you actually don't like the video, you know, put something constructive in the comments. If you just put a jerk comment though, like somebody put a comment in there, oh, you're just whining the whole time, I couldn't even watch the whole video, you know, my response to that is, you know what, just shut up, because I don't really want to hear what you have to say. But if you have something constructive to say, please do not hesitate to put it down in the comments. I do read every single comment that I get right now, and that will continue until it gets to the point where I have so many comments that I just can't read them anymore. I like to respond to them as much as I can as well, so if I don't respond to your comment, I do apologize, but I do try to respond to them, or at least give them a thumbs up or something like that. You can like us on Facebook, folks. There's a link on my homepage for my YouTube channel. Just click on the little Facebook icon, that'll take you there. You can also follow us on Twitter. I don't think I've ever done anything on there, but I don't have that many followers, so why would I do anything on there? And then don't forget, you can follow us on Twitch at Captain Mac 3588. And as always, folks, that wraps it up, so keep the blue side up unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all, and have a fantastic day.